The Grappling Hour is brought to you by Luda Gear, athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers.
Yeah. Check it out.
Hello, friends. Hello, true believers, I guess is a good way to start off this week. Let me just say this real quick. If you're going to book a show, why not book a show like today? Because today is a massive show, guys. I'm not just bringing you one ADCC trials winner from the East Coast. I'm bringing you two. And I'm also bringing you an EBI trials. Just everybody's won a trials. That's it. I said everybody who comes on today's show better have won a GD trials. And what better way to start off than to get to know a gentleman who I've never interviewed before. I'm very excited to get to know him. Many of you are familiar with his work. If you are at all living and breathing in Jiu-Jitsu, you know that the name Jonathan Satava is one that inspires both confidence in seeing a good match and fear that you don't have to go up against him. But I thought, what better way to get to know the gentleman than to bring him on our show right now for your viewing pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Jonathan Satava. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here.
Well, you say that now, but let's see what happens in about 5 minutes or so. I'm glad that you're glad to be here. And I got to tell you, man, I've been a huge fan of everything that you do. You know, there's such a great element of jiu-jitsu. I know that some of my friends, when I told them that I would be interviewing you, they all say that you are the heir apparent to Marcelo's style of jiu-jitsu. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's in a way it's a big responsibility, but it makes me feel kind of honored. You know, he was my idol kind of growing up, even before I met him in the sport, and just to have that kind of attached to me, you know, holds a lot of weight, but I kind of enjoy carrying it. And he's my teacher, right? So that's where my jiu-jitsu comes from. So I think that makes sense.
And there are worse things people could be called or ascribed to. But man, to get at the top of the food chain, let me ask this, because I guess when they were doing all this sort of prepackaged sort of stuff, there was a headline that stopped my heart, which was, wait, I'm sorry, don't mess with me, clickbait. Because the clickbait was starting to make it seem like Marcelo is coming back to compete. Is he, or is that just a really good headline? Because I want to know right now if my heart should stop and what to do about this.
I think he's going to come back. You know, who knows to what extent. I think he'll definitely, you know, look into taking some super fights and things like this. You know, I don't want to speak for him, but just from the little that we've chatted and stuff like that, he seemed very game for that. You know, maybe you'll see him at an ADCC super fight, or I guess he just said Kazai, right? So who knows? That'd be super exciting. And he even said, you know, worlds too. So I don't know to what extent he means, but when him and I have chatted, you know, he wants to come back at least for, you know, a fight or two, as long as his kids will, you know, kind of allow it, you know.
Okay. I don't care how or when or why. What do I need to do to bribe those kids? Because here's the thing that I always like to say. You know, Marcelo, very pure, beautiful jiu-jitsu. I'm sure you as a fan understand there's an element of magic in getting to see him compete. And, like, we're still studying his tapes to this day. And
yeah,
we're learning more and more that more individuals keep going towards MMA. So whenever we lose like a Hidalgo to MMA, I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm not done learning
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
you've got. So when you get somebody who's one of those mythical unicorns who says, I'd like to come back, you go, oh, please, would you? Don't mess with me,
yeah,
my man.
yeah. That was definitely my feelings too. And I don't know. Whenever I hear him coming back, I always remember this story. One of our teammates, um, or his student, they were talking about how many titles he won and everything like that. And I remember that teammate holding up 9 fingers, and then Marcel going over to his hand and putting up one more finger. So so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to talk for him.
I,
He'll tell you better than I can. But it seems like we can see at least a little more out of him. So I'm excited for that.
okay, well, that's pretty good. I'm not going to hold you under investigation here. I'm just saying, listen, I've never interviewed the man, the myth, the legend. And when you see a Flow Grappling headline, they've in the past been hit and miss with being like, hey, read this article because something might be good in it. And so to use
Yeah,
Marcella, I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
don't you start with me. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I can put up with a lot of clickbait because I sent a text to one of my friends
For
and I
sure.
just said, business is picking up because to see him would be, I think, wonderful for the sport. And that's just
Totally,
speaking from the fan perspective. So,
totally.
but let's focus a little bit on you because, my man, accomplishing what you have accomplished is no easy task. But you had an amazing run over at ADCC trials, and I unfortunately was not able to get out there to cover it. So I always like to reach out to those individuals who won it and give them their proper time to talk about it. So I'd love to hear, what does your ADCC prep look like, and when does it start?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This one was not it not as structured or as focused as my other ones have been. Um, I kind of have a lot of things going on in my life right now, so but in a way that was kind of liberating, just to be able to go out there and not feel that pressure that sometimes we as competitors put on ourselves. So
Mm.
in a way, it kind of maybe worked out. But I was still training, probably twice a day, maybe like 4 times a week, and then once a day on that fifth day, and then still finding time to lift and get a cardio session in also, and a little bit of wrestling. Not as much as I would have liked, um, but yeah. So I still got the time in, or the sessions in. It just wasn't as structured and on the schedule that I normally follow. Like, for example, sometimes I wasn't getting training sessions in with my main training partners, like Mateos, like Marcos, like Gianni, so many other little Mateo, so many other high level guys, because I had other obligations. But I still made sure that I found my time to get those sessions in.
I guess you mentioned one thing that kind of struck out to me there. One, as a person who just doesn't do it, but two, as a person who's used the excuse of, well, Barcelo says he doesn't lift. So, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't lift, why am I going to lift? And yet here we are, sir. You're there telling us right now that you got to get lifts in. Does Marcelo prod you on that? Does he say, like, is my teaching not good enough? That you got to run to the weights? Like, what does that feel like, my man?
So it's a thing, because I'd say I'm one of the students who've been with Marcel for probably the longest, I think, and in a way, I've got to see him evolve as a coach as well. And when we were younger, I remember him, kind of like you said, like being a little bit like, yeah, why do you guys need to do that stuff? Like, I'd rather you guys save your energy for my trainings and to train jiu-jitsu hard. That's what's most important. But as he got older and he's kind of matured as a coach, and also, seen kind of the effects, if you talk to him nowadays, he'll tell you that he thinks you need something supplemental, not for the sake of making your jiu-jitsu better, but for the sake of keeping your body kind of healthy. Um, So he's definitely more understanding, when it comes to that. And I have what also works for me too. What works for one might not work for another. And I like I said, I try to do some strength workout one time a week, a cardio one time, and then more of like a rehab with my trainer, Johnny. He runs the Hood Movement if you want to check him out. But and yeah, so that's me, and that's what's been working for me.
That's fine,
So
but
that's what I
I
stick to.
hope you understand you're killing what has been a large tenet of my excuses that I've been able to run for years. Like, we're talking, I've gotten away with this excuse for
Yeah.
close to a decade of me saying, like, well, Marcelo has said, and people are like,
Yeah.
Raff Waff, we know. Um,
Yeah, but how's your body feel though? Like now, I mean, how long have you been training jiu-jitsu for, right?
about 8, 9 years, yeah.
8 or 9 years. How's your body holding up? Like, I mean, I don't know how often you're training, but that's the thing that kind of Marcelo like kind of realized. So
Listen, I understand that, but you guys started off as like pristine automobiles. I started off as a jalopy, and
come on, come
I
on.
essentially like no, don't get me wrong. Like my jujitsu is very functional. It gets you from place to
Yeah.
place, but like it's not like it gets put out on a display or in a museum or anything. It's just kind of like, oh well, okay, good for him. That yeah. So that's
Well, I think you gotta find what works for you, and if that's been working, then it's
Uh,
not an excuse.
well, let's be very clear. I would not say whatever I'm doing is working. There are 1,000 times when people will be like, "Raph, show me what that thing that you do," and I was like, "Please don't do anything I do. In fact, if you see me rolling, do the exact opposite of what I'm
Um,
doing, and I think you're doing the right thing."
uh,
It's
and-
the do as I say, not as I do, because I'm always like, anytime the younger belts look at me and they're like, "Well, that's the way we should do it," I was like, "No, no, this is the stupid jujitsu that works for me. I don't know how to explain this for you." But I'm curious though. So with all that, you got a lot going on. What does your day
yeah,
look like as it comes down to ADCC? You're somebody who competes all the time, and yet it feels like another day at the office. However, your want to go to ADCC has to be high. So your
yeah.
want to be back there and controlling that with just another day at the office has to be two almost very conflicting ideas as you get into the day of competition.
Yeah, those are things that we wrestle with all the time, right? And on the day of the tournament, at least the days when I think I perform my best is when I'm kind of just present and kind of happy to be there, and thankfully that was one of those days. And that's most important. If you get caught up in your thoughts too much, you're just not going to be focused on the match in front of you, the opponent in front of you, and you're going to miss opportunities. That's my experience, at least. So the way I kind of it sounds kind of funny, but the way I kind of deal with that kind of mental battle is just not to participate in it. So yeah.
That's a good choice. I mean, I'm glad you're able to do that. But I think that also comes with being able to do it for so many years that you can kind of pick and choose how it is. It feels
Totally.
comfortable. It feels like going in and doing anything else. Like, and
Totally.
to be very blunt, I do feel like, your room, especially in training, might be just as hard, if not harder, than some of those trials. That's not meant to put any of your opponents down. It's more so a reflection of, yeah, you name some names there.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. I think it's like anything. Some people. It's not just learning jiu-jitsu. When you're a competitor, you also have to learn how to compete and how you compete, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. And then definitely having the training partners that I have and the coaches that I have, you can't help but go into there with confidence. I remember so many tournaments, like walking into the tournament, like walking up, for example, at Worlds, like the pyramid steps, like with so many guys at my side, and I'm just like, man, we got the best crew here. It's just the way I feel. So
Yeah.
it helped.
No, of course, of course. Now, all right, let's walk through the day. Your very first match starts off very solid. You get a submission to start the day off. Walk us through how that match goes in your interpretation, sir.
Oh man, I was not happy with that match actually.
Wow.
I felt like I was like, I don't know. Being honest, there were some like weird things that happened leading up to that fight with the weigh-ins and stuff like that. I ended up having to cut. I don't even know where to start. But I ended up. Long story short, I ended up having to cut an extra 2 pounds when I got to the venue that I shouldn't have had to cut. And so yeah, I was running for probably a good like 40 minutes. You know, I hadn't eaten or drank anything at that point. My weight was good, right? But it wasn't the point. It was the point where I was planning to weigh in, then eat and stuff like that. They usually give you a couple hours for ADCC, but I had to spend my whole window before the first fight running this weight off.
Jesus.
Which turns out that I didn't need to run the weight off, but anyway.
Hold on. No. Don't bypass that. You can't bypass that. I'm going to tell you this right now. For the mere fact that you're talking to an actual fat human being, who's, when I hear that you don't give me an actual scale that's working properly, and that my first concern is, do you know how hard it is for me to do this? Because that on top of, we've been talking about this with multiple people, but I really feel it's the truth. That on top of the amount of length of time it took for you guys to get certain points with certain referees would send me into a cataclysmic, epic failure. Like, I'm talking, when I saw some of those guys waiting 40 seconds to give points, I was like, my heart can't do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. I don't know if ADCC just waits longer to give the rules, but I don't know what happened on the weigh-ins that day, but there were some miscommunications, at least on some people's ends. And long story short, like I sent an email the day before checking when the weigh-ins were going to be. They told me 9:30. They started at 8, but I ended up like figuring it out, no problem. Go to the venue, you check in at the desk, right? And the guy gives me the wristband, and I'm asking him, "Oh, did weigh-in start yet?" And he's like, "No, they didn't start yet. Go wait in the gymnasium." I'm waiting in the gymnasium for like half an hour. My teammates are. I finally asked my teammate. I'm like, "So, do you guys like? Did they call weigh-ins?" And they're like, "Dude, go weigh in." And I'm like, "What the heck?" All right, so go to the weigh-ins. I'm thinking I'm going to be on weight because I checked it this morning. I thought I had my scale right, this and that. Step on the scale. They're like, "Oh, you're 0.5 kilograms over." It's about like 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. And I'm like, all right, damn, fuck, I guess my scale's off, right? So I start running it off, come back, and I'm still 0.1 over. While I'm there's another kid in my division complaining basically that this scale is different from the other scale. Mind you, they had my division weigh on this like $20 healthometer scale versus this nice electric scale next to it. Okay, so I don't want to talk bad about the venue, but I'm just being honest. I'm just giving you guys the facts.
Again, here's the difference. I hope that people understand that it's different. It's not like you're talking trash about somebody in particular. You are recounting an athletic perspective of what happened. And to be very blunt, like, this is the stuff that people think, oh, I'm going to a Naga, no big deal. It happens to me there. We're talking, this is ADCC trials. So it can happen anywhere. And honestly, if you're really thinking it out, it can affect the performance. It can take you out of your element. So I think it's important to say it. I don't think you're sitting there trashing the entire thing, like being like, DeBlas, get your kids in order.
I don't want them to screw me after. I don't know how people are considered. So, I don't know.
I'll tell you two things. One, I don't think they're listening to the show. Two,
good.
If they are listening to this show, they can take this this very kindly worded statement from me, which is, go fuck yourself. Because, listen, guys, we're not trying to talk shit about anybody.
Yeah,
don't make it about yourself. 100%. We just want to know if you're unhappy with getting a submission in the first round that you're competing in. I have to ask why. And more importantly, you do fill in some of that context. Because honestly, if I got a sub in that first round, I don't care how much weight I miss. I'll be like, I got a sub. in this first round.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you for clarifying that and pointing that out. That 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 helps me a lot. But yeah. So I'll just finish it up real quick. So anyway, the at this point when I'm point one over, they tell me you have 10 minutes left to make the weight, and so like I'm not going to sit here and listen to this guy who's arguing with them about the scales, right? So I'm just like, okay, let me just run this off. So at this point, I probably ran like 40 minutes. Think about how much I can run for 40 minutes, right? Like probably ran like a good like 3-4 miles easy, and at this point I'm losing time also that I should be eating or rehydrating, and then I come back 8 minutes later, all of a sudden I'm 0.6 kilograms under. So they recalibrated the scale to match the other scale, right? Yeah, it's not a joke. So
No.
I'm just like, I don't know what happened, if the scale got moved or whatever, or something. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they did me a favor, and I'm like trashing them. Maybe they did it for me. I don't know. But the point is like the scale was way different than it was, and there's no way I lost that much in 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, anywho, so then I pretty much got there, and my first fight I was just honestly I was just out of it, and I felt like I didn't feel good in my first two fights, and I got the submission my first fight, but I remember feeling like I shouldn't have finished. Like I felt like if he would have fought my hands instead of trying to pull my head, I don't know if I would have been able to hold on. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have edged out the match, but I think it was honestly a mistake on my opponent, not something good that I did, at least for that finish. So yeah.
It worked. We have two different interpretations of how we saw it. I saw what I saw live, and I'm glad I get the background on it. But, we progressed to the next stage of the game. Are you one of the people who is watching your opponents in between? Because there does seem to be a split, or do you just not care? And especially after something that intense happens to begin with, do you just need to go somewhere else to get back in your zone?
Yeah, no, I don't watch it all. I feel bad sometimes because sometimes I feel like I should be helping out my teammates, and if I have enough time, like I will. But I'm kind of selfish competition day, and I just go off, lay down, put on some chill music again, and then get ready. Just mentally get ready for the next one.
I don't think anyone's gonna behold you for being selfish on a day where you're competing. They're just going to look over and be like, look at Satava, just thinking of himself again. Over there listening to Sade. How dare he?
Yeah. Enya.
Oh, it's Enya. Oh, okay. You know what? I knew it was something you hear when you go to a spa, so I wasn't too far off. Let's talk about your next match. Your next match goes 3-0, which probably does feel good. It's an Ahenzo Gracie individual that you're going up against in Stout. What are your recollections for this? Are you able to get back on track? Where are you mentally here?
I think I missed the rear naked choke on that one too. I think I had a crucifix and I missed it. And I wasn't happy about that, but next fight that was my attitude kind of towards that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Now we continue on. It's funny. Yeah. I want you to be honest on these, and I'm getting it. It's just I like the idea of being like, yeah, that one sucked too. Next, can we get to the one where I win the championship? Because that'd be cool too. Like, do you begin to be happy toward this time? Because now we're getting to the point where you advance. Things seem to be going pretty well. You're up 9-0, which, sure, maybe you don't get the sub, but 9-0 is going to make you feel pretty good at this point, though.
Yeah, that guy was tough. I missed the rear naked choke on him too, honestly, but he was tough. He was a game competitor, and I think he was like a good wrestler and stuff like that. So that match, I started to find like more my rhythm. I think I was more hydrated from the weight cut at that point because ADCC runs through the fights. They don't do it by division, right? They run through all the first round, then all the second round, so on and so on for each category. So, yeah, it gave me some time to rehydrate. It felt better that one.
And sometimes your whole fate is tuned into the idea that you might have one round for a different weight class go real quick, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess I'm back up again. So what is it feeling like? Are you feeling energized? Are you feeling rested? Or are you still kind of in that weird place of like, this feels weird?
No, rested. But my third fight, I was good. My first two fights, I felt like a little out of it. But my third fight, I felt like, okay, I'm hydrated. I'm rested. I think I even took a little nap, and I was just like ready to go by that point. So
Okay. All right. So
yeah,
now we're at what? We're at quarters. So it's you versus DeGarmo, and it's a
yeah,
520. You get a submission.
yeah.
Again,
That was
now
the
are
best
you
fight.
able to? Well, now are you not able to beat yourself up as you're like, oh, I let the rear naked choke go twice. If I do it one more time, I'm quitting jiu-jitsu because I suck. Ugh.
No, that was my best fight. That was my best fight. I was happy with that one for sure. For sure, that was my best fight.
How were you able to set that up and finish it?
Um, I remember. I think I trapped his arm. His arm ended up slipping out, but it was too late. I already. I already. Actually, this fight. Now that I think about it, if I remember, there was some one of the fights. I think it might have been this fight. The guys, what they were doing was they were. I would get like a good position on them, like pretty much almost past, and then right before the points would turn, they would basically throw their guard to the side. So I want to get the pass points right. And I think he might have been one of those guys, but it's funny because it happened to me so many times that I started to realize that I can just throw my leg over like with my good underhook and my cross face for a bad mount, and if they don't lock the half guard again for me to pass again, then I'm gonna get the mount. And I think at that point he turned, and I think that's how I was able to take the back on that one. Unless I'm getting them confused,
Okay.
but yeah,
No, I
the
think I
rules.
think you're right on that one.
Yeah, the rules are so different, right? There's different strategy involved than what we're used to. So I guess it made sense, but then it's like what their counters are. But then it's like, okay, I got to figure out a way to counter their strategical counters. So
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so walk me through what happens in this because in the semifinals we start to find something weird is happening, and I'm not being
yeah,
walked through it in any way. I was doing a live stream version of talking through it, and so I was very confused because Flo Arena was all over and didn't know exactly what was happening here.
yeah, it was weird the semifinal match. I think I was supposed to fight PJ. I think 10th planet guy. Um, and he got hurt with a guy I think from Tom the Blast's school. I'm pretty sure. And anyway, but PJ won the match, right? And so the one of the other coordinators, not Tom, one of the other one, came up to me and was like, "Oh, like PJ can't fight, so you're good." And then later he came up to me as well as like the guys from Flow. I don't know if they were trying to figure it out or if they were telling me. It was kind of weird, but they were like, "Oh, but we got somebody else for you to fight," and I'm just like, this doesn't seem right to me. Like, you got somebody else for me to fight. Like, imagine Leandro Lowe didn't get to fight Buchecha in the final, like when Buchecha gave him that title last year, right? Like, they put in a substitution because he got hurt. Like, come on, like that's not the way a tournament format works, right? So the guy actually from ADCC, the head referee confirmed and was like, no, he doesn't have to fight. Like, he gets a pass and that's it. So that's what happened.
That is pretty interesting. That like for a split second they're like, you feel like you go, well, welcome to the finals, and they go, hold on,
Right.
behind this door is your
Yeah.
next opponent, and you're just like, no,
Right.
no, no. Listen, dude, sounds great. This is not a game
Yeah.
show. I want to just
Yeah.
win.
Right. That's literally was my mentality, and there's a sense of like as fighters, it's or competitors, it's tough because you want to go out there and compete. And you don't want to back down from a match, but at the same time, we got to also keep the bigger picture in mind. And the bigger picture was, winning the tournament and not the next match. So even if I won the next match, who knows? Maybe I would have been tired for my final. So
Sure.
if the rules say that, I've gotten screwed by the rules. This time the rules worked in my favor, so let's do it like that. That's the way I felt. So
Well, from a fan perspective, I would have loved to have seen you and PJ. So that was
yeah,
disappointing. But from
Totally.
a different perspective of an athlete where you're getting in there, you know, it is strange to be put in that predicament where you're like, well, I didn't do it. You know, it's not my
Yeah.
fault. And you have to
Yeah.
think, like, what would another athlete do in that situation? You know, we love you guys for being do or die individuals who are like, I don't care who you put in there. Put someone in there and let me go to war. Let me bang, bro, or whatever the grappling version of that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Mhm.
hard part for me is I think sometimes that version of it means this other person gets a shot out of nowhere to
Yeah.
do what they weren't afforded either.
That's true. He didn't earn his spot to fight me there. You know what I mean? So
So
that's
it's
that's a good.
complicated. Don't get me wrong. I would take that spot. I would be the person
Yeah.
who was like, hey, I know I didn't win anything, but like, I mean, if I just warp zone to the semis, come on, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Yeah.
going to talk shit about anybody who would take that opportunity because I would 100% do it. But that has to make you feel good
So,
that you were able to rest your energy for what ended up being a very solid match for your actual finals match. So can you talk us through your finals match as well?
yeah. So this is something that I've been. My finals match was something that I have mixed feelings about because I executed a strategy that I had in mind, um, but at the same time, I've kind of been at war with that, like internally with myself throughout more towards my black belt career. Once I hit black belt, I felt like I lost. I let a couple of matches get away from me that I could have won, just because I was kind of being too reckless and kind of really trying to keep going forward and keep going for the submission. Uh, what I feel like embodies more the spirit of the sport, of the art, or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, the way the sport, fortunately or unfortunately, the way the sport works is, you got to win. And so in that finals match, as soon as I clinched with him, I was like, I can take him down whenever I want. Like sometimes you just know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, man, like I'm gonna wait for the points. And so I just waited and I took him down. I think 10 seconds into the points period. So I was right about that assessment, thankfully. And then from there, I was trying to pass his guard. He's got a tough frame system, you know what I mean. And I know he likes to get underneath the leg, so I was trying not to give him that. And and uh, and so yeah, I ended up winning. I think they gave me a penalty for action on top, and they gave him a penalty for pulling guard towards the end. So I think I won like one nothing or something. I think it was or
I have a
or
2-0, I think, or something like that. Yeah, 2-0 is what I have here.
yeah, yeah. So um so yeah, it was a good match. Jason's tough. We fought before um at the lower belts. So it was cool to fight him again as a black belt.
And he had a pretty good day into himself as well. Like, that's the hard part that it is to explain to a lot of the athletes is whenever we're watching as fans, obviously they're like, I didn't win, whatever, I hate things. But for me, I had a
Yeah.
fun time watching him as well because
Yeah.
he had a number of highlights that I thought were fairly solid throughout the day. So I like the fact that there's an element, maybe one that you're now hearing yourself say more than you're aware of, but that you were super grumpy on a day that ended up pretty good for you. So when it's all said and done, are you stopping being grumpy? Do they put the medal on and you're just like, ugh, 2 rear naked chokes? Oh, god damn it, Raph.
No, I was happy.
Okay.
Come on, how could you not? I tried so hard for this. For ADCC, you have to wait 2 years for the tournament, right?
Yep.
And um, you know, I think the first time I did these trials, I made it to the semis, and then the second time I did the trials, I took third. So to finally get it, you can't help. I'm for sure happy, and you feel that rush of like accomplishment and things like this. I think, but I'd be lying to say that I don't think about those rear naked chokes, but I think about it from a sense like, okay, I can't miss those during the actual ADCC because that could cost me.
Sure.
So the fights are way longer. You miss those, that's a big deal. So
Sure. And also, pros and cons because 3-3 is a wacky format for trials.
Yeah.
Just in my opinion, especially when you get the top tier athletes, it's just done with the mindset of yo, we gotta go. We can't be here all day,
Yeah.
guys. But it's hard to train for that because if you really think about it, those 3 minutes that you have to not worry about points don't mean you just don't worry about jiu-jitsu. You still want to be in
Right.
the best possible positions, but then to have that thing happen where you go, end time, and I'm going to get this takedown, and, I'm good with this. If we just want to keep it right here
Yep.
and just kind of advance the time, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I think
It's
that's an important skill that people have to have, though.
yeah, yeah, you're right. I think, you know, playing the clock and things like that is something that is a skill, unfortunately, that we have to develop if we're going to go compete. Or fortunately, depend how you look on it. But the rules worked out to my favor. If you pull guard in the final, it's -1, even in the no
Yeah.
point period. So he couldn't really pull on me, or at least he didn't take that risk, right? So, yeah,
Okay, so we discussed that you're at least happy with yourself after this is all said and
yeah.
done. Considering you had to do all the extra running and you had to, you were told you were fat, which I'm sure makes you feel great walking in. Is there anything that you do to celebrate or commemorate?
Man, I just needed to get home. It's in New Jersey. I had a hike back. It's one of those things where it's weird because New Jersey's like local enough where you don't want to pay for an extra hotel night.
Sure.
So, um, but I don't know. I think I got some Five Guys and then just drove back home, and that's pretty much
Good
it.
for you. I just feel bad because
Yeah.
whenever I replenish, like whenever I've gotten too many pounds down, I think there's a natural law of order that like allows me to go, I mean, there's a burger joint right there. I mean, In-N-Out and I are going to make friends tonight. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
able to do that.
I mean, after the tournament, I think like even at least some of the articles and information that I've encountered, like it says, like you need those refeeds, especially you deprive yourself of that many calories for that long to cut that weight and stuff like that. So it's almost like the weight doesn't even bounce back up after those meals after the tournament.
Whatever you say, kid. I'm just going to let you tell me whatever science sounds good to me. So that way, whenever I like go to eat after training really hard, I'm going to be like, guys, Satava told me from a very reliable source he read somewhere that it's Taco Tuesday and I need to replenish my body after training really hard. So,
There you go.
if
There you go.
he's going to ADCC trials, none of you guys are. So, I'm just saying. Jonathan, again, since this is our first time kind of interviewing, I do like to go back and kind of know a little bit about where the jiu-jitsu begins for you because you don't just end up on a podium for ADCC trials. That takes years. That takes, well, for some people, I don't know about this new model kid who's in the heavyweights that Jay Regal Budo's shopping around. But 6 months in, I'll talk with him later. I'm
Sure.
talking, where does the jiu-jitsu journey begin for you, sir?
I was 18. I just turned 18 when I started because it was my first semester of college at Stony Brook University in Long Island, and there was a jiu-jitsu club on campus. I did some martial arts when I was younger, and wanted to find something to do on campus, kind of extracurricular. And actually was looking for the MMA club, but it was a jiu-jitsu club, and I'm like, oh, what's the difference? Like, just hop in that, and um, fell in love with it. Eventually, after kind of uh, realizing that this was my passion in life, and kind of wrestling with like what to do with that, what to do about that. I took a chance, kind of dropped out, and more or less joined Marcelo's, and never looked back. Thankfully, I was in the right place at the right time, and had a lot of opportunities come my way because of it.
Were you in sports to begin with? I mean, you seem like a fairly in shape human being. So, did that happen? And if so, what sports were you playing to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew up probably right around the time where video games were just kind of starting out to get get good, and but we played outside a lot during the day. So me and my friends around the neighborhood would cycle through all I guess, the popular sports like basketball, football, baseball, this and that. But as far as like team sports go, as a school growing up and stuff like that, I played some baseball and I skated actually growing up a lot. And
Yeah, so I
and
noticed, and
also,
I don't want to give people the exact name that you have for your Skype, but it does show how long it's been since
oh
you've
man,
used your Skype account when you send
that's
this to me, and
true.
I was like, kid, listen,
Yeah, so I don't. Guys, you can tell I made it that long ago. That's true.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some screen names I don't know that I'd want to revisit at this point in my life that I
Yeah,
created when
yeah.
I was a teenager. But
Oh, sure,
I
sure.
just thought, like, I couldn't help but say,
It's like this is definitely old. Yeah,
well, I couldn't
I,
help but think,
you hope.
like, all right, kid, how much shit do I need to give him for being a skateboarder who then found his way into jiu-jitsu? As if there's not a host of other people who are like, yeah, I was boarding. Then one day I just like skateboarded past Marcelo's and I was like, what? I'm just happy to be super athletic. I'm going to go in there. And now I'm super badass. Like, I didn't know that I should give you that much shit, which is why I wanted to ask. So
That's what.
here's the question,
Wasn't
though.
quite like that, but yeah, I skated growing up.
I'll
Sure.
tell you this much. It's the story that's going to get the headlines going out of this. Pro Grappling's going to report and be like, a rebel skater, surfer dude, Jonathan Satava,
Quick bait.
cruises his way into Marcelo Garcia backstory. Um, Here's the question that I love asking people because I think it's pivotal to know for athletes that connects them, which is when did you know that you actually fell in love with jiu-jitsu? You obviously had a mecca, a place to really, really love and to learn the craft. But when's the moment that you say, all right, cool, I'm not a hobbyist. This is what I'm doing?
Okay, so I told you I did like martial arts, like growing up and stuff like that when I was younger. So I guess my love for like combat and stuff like that started at a younger age. But as far as jujitsu goes, I don't know. I'm competitive. I'm very competitive, and I guess my kind of pack up and go moment, I guess I'll call it, was when I was a blue belt. It was at the Abu Dhabi World Pro Trials in New York. It was so not the one in the gi.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost a match to some kid who I felt like I should have beat. Like, and then he went on and won the trip, and I just like I was so upset with myself and so distraught, like being like, what am I doing with my life? I don't even like what I'm doing in school. Like, I feel like I can make something out of this. Like I'm not going to school tomorrow. Like that's literally what it was.
Kids, just a small disclaimer: jiu-jitsu's great and
Yeah.
all, but education also important. So anyway, go on. Jesus.
I think I think education is definitely important and has its place. It just depends what you want to do for your career, and that wasn't
Yeah,
really
no,
what I
good save,
wanted.
kid. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Aces all around.
It was just one of those things where it's just like I got to the point where I jumped around majors so much also where it was just like I was trying to find the career path that would give me the biggest opportunity to train. Like I remember, for example, like Rich Franklin being a teacher and also making it to the UFC, and I thought that was like the coolest thing.
Mm.
So I was like, man, I'm gonna be a gym teacher and just train jiu-jitsu all the time. But then I was just like, man, why am I doing this? Like, like this is I don't know, silly. So that was another part of my thought process. But yeah,
I mean, you also have a nice backstory in that, you thought you were going to an MMA class, allegedly,
yeah,
and that it became a
yeah.
jiu-jitsu class. Do you ever have those MMA thoughts still? Like, has that like gone out of your head and you're like, nah, jiu-jitsu?
No way, I can't do MMA. I don't know. I think I'm too old now. So
Well,
I
again,
don't think.
I asked selfishly because I've lost to Dolfo, like Lovato Junior's out there at Bellator, and I'm always like, yeah, this is great and all, guys. But for me, my hope would be that you actually can make a career and a living out of this, which is why it's so important that we do the things like we interview them. We make the sport more interesting. We make it more broad because the more I see you guys start to get that tingle, and the reason why I ask you is twofold. Number one, highly competitive personality means, I mean, how would I do in MMA? And number two, the feeling is, as somebody who's never had the want to be in a cage, I know what that feeling is. I know what that
Right.
is to say, like, nah, I'm good. I don't need that. But for someone who has had it, to make the transfer to being that person, it does take a little bit of work. So I was just making sure that they extracted, like, I don't know if Marcelo put you under a gun and they just kind of like sucked it out of your brain, or, if it's still harboring somewhere deep inside the guy who tosses up a Monopoly board because he doesn't quite get Park Place.
Well, I don't know if I'm a sore loser. I'm definitely competitive, but the thing with the MMA is I kind of realized at a certain point that I think going into MMA takes a certain personality type, and you got to be a certain kind of person to want to do damage to somebody and take damage. Jiu-Jitsu is one of the few arts that affords us that avoidance, and so I kind of, after some introspection, actually, I don't think it's the right sport for me.
I mean,
I
makes
think I
sense.
lost.
No, I'm
There you are.
here. Sorry, it took a second. I was just saying
No,
that makes sense, and I'm glad for it. Like, I'm just gonna be selfish now and just tell you I'm
thanks.
glad you're with us, and I hope we give you lots of the money that helps you do that, because I understand the one thing that is interesting is to be somebody who's good at grappling and to have a skateboarding background tells me, in some way, for a number of grapplers who I do know have skateboarded for a long time, my first thought process is, we need to chop those legs down because life's already taken a few knocks at those. So,
What's crazy is I never really got hurt skateboarding that much. I got hurt. I got hurt playing baseball. I got hurt snowboarding a lot. I got hurt wrestling. I wrestled for like 2 years in grade school, but yeah, I never got hurt skating. Like not that bad. Like definitely you get your bumps and bruises. I want to knock on wood right now because I still skate every now and again. But I never got hurt that bad. Snowboarding, broken wrist, concussion, this and that. Baseball, broken leg, tib fib. Wrestling, broken collarbone, concussion. But skateboarding so far, knock on wood again. From K.
but don't tempt the fate. Don't keep going out there. Like, if you're skateboarding to go down the street to get some food, do your thing. But if you're doing it for a long period of time and you're like, I wonder if I can still jump, I want you to hear my voice in your head that just says, ADCC trials winner.
Yeah.
Angers.
Yeah.
Salty podcast host for not heeding his warning. So I hope you take that with you as you go on.
Yeah, I'm being honest. I'm probably still gonna skate a little bit, but but I'll be careful.
Are you skating a little bit before ADCC? Can I at least get that out of you? Jesus
maybe.
Christ, Satava. I don't have time for this bullshit.
Let me tell you. So before ADCC trials, it was a week before. My friend just got done building his mini pipe in his backyard, right? And we were there, and they were having a little ram session, and I was just like, and they were trying to get me on there, and I was like, man, I'm not going on there. But it wasn't because of the ADCC trials; it was because I would have cut all this weight for no reason if I got hurt. So I was just like, so as long as I'm dieting, I probably won't go on it because that means I'm too close. So, but yeah.
I'm going to be honest, kid. You worry me. You worry me a lot in the way that I can't control. You're on a different coast. I can't yell at you a ton. I can maybe send you a direct message that's like, are you dead today? Please don't die. But, I mean, again, maybe this is the part that doesn't seep in just yet. But, like, I feel like those of us who are fans here, we should always rally behind the people who are representing America. Because now you're not just representing your team. This is the Olympics, fool. So when you come to Long Beach, you're coming to my neck of the woods. And if I see you hobbling on over, and I've got to give you that look over that's like, well, you know what you did. sir.
Yeah. I'll be careful, Ralph. I
All
promise. I'll be
right,
careful.
all right, good. Because the reason why I ask this is, it seems like you were mentioning that there were some things that kind of tie together nicely, which is we know a little bit more about your history, what it means to you. We can figure that in with your ADCC trials run, which is a great feather in your cap, which is already an impressive jiu-jitsu young career to begin with. But what is about to change for you? I think that we have some breaking news that I don't know that has been announced, uh, but I think that that's a pretty good launching point for us to talk about maybe the things that were preoccupying you as you were going into this year's trials.
Yeah, so I guess jujitsu wise, the big one is I'm going to be opening a school out in my hometown in Long Island. It's about an hour and a half away from the city, so hopefully I can still go in there and get some good sessions and get my butt kicked. But yeah, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I always saw myself kind of, taking what I've learned and bringing it back to my community, back to my friends, my family, and so yeah, that process is underway. We can the website we signed the lease about 2 weeks ago. I've been working nonstop with a couple of good buddies of mine, thankfully, on the space. But the website's up right now, peakjj.com. We're gonna call it Peak Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah, I hope if you guys are in Long Island or if you're ever out there or want to come train with me, you can check it out.
That's pretty dope, dude. What does the team feel about you going though? Because that has to be tough. I know that you're saying you're going to find the time. All of you East Coasters are like, yeah, I live basically like 9 train rides away. It's about an hour to get there. Like, that's essentially what I get from every single one of you guys. But I'm sure that
Yeah.
they also feel like a certain way about you announcing that.
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of them are stoked, you know what I mean? And as good teammates should be, right? And, most important for me, Marcelo is on board and I have his blessing and he, you know, you have to respect the guy so much because when we were coming up and even now I'm sure he'll still say this, like he's like, I think you guys can do better than me in jiu-jitsu. And like when I told him that I wanted to open a school, he's like, "I want you to open a school better than mine." And like Marcelo's school is huge and best school in the world. So you know, he to have that support means the world to me. So I'm so thankful for that.
That's a great thing, and it truly is the mark of what I feel a good teacher is, which is they do want the best for you. They do want you to go on and continue and do bigger and better things. Of course, you like I think hear him say that and go, I want you to have a better school than I do, and you go, how about we get past day one and I open the school, and then we can talk about like, yeah, I'm gonna totally crush your school. No, I mean just oh god, Marcelo. All right,
That's the type of person he is too.
yeah. Well, that's so great, dude. I have to say this, man. I get so excited to see that next chapter for people because it is important to pay it forward. There is a little bit of a lost art for competitors who sometimes, whether it's career choices or different opportunities that come up, who don't necessarily pay it forward. But you have a wealth of knowledge from competition that I'm sure a whole new subset of individuals will be able to benefit from. So I, for one, am very happy for you to have that as a thing. I found it very funny because when you were telling me, you're like, hey, man, I gotta figure out a time that this works because I'm in the middle of doing this and that. And it's kind of hard to tell you, like, hey, jerk, get on the train or don't. When in actuality, it's like once you told me that, I was like, yeah, your time is very precious right now. So I do very much appreciate you taking the time to do that, man.
It's my pleasure, and it's one of those things where I'm there. I think I got home at 8 o'clock tonight, and I was there at 10 o'clock. So it's an all day thing for now. That's how it was too for ADCC when I was training for it. It was like I still had to give probably 2 days a week at least full time days, and then the weekends also.
Yep.
And right after I went to TC trials, you asked me how I celebrated. The next day, I woke up 9 o'clock to go to the gym and start spackling. So like, it's like that right now, you know. So
I will say you aren't alone. It seems like every other person has had like a super underwhelming like response to it. I don't want to give away exactly what Alex said that he did. That's coming up a little bit later on the show today. But Alex's response was, I don't know that it was worse, but it's definitely not the one where as an interviewer you're like, so did you go out, you eat some pizza, you go to a club, you do something fun for you? It's just like him going pretty much the opposite of that.
oh man, I have to listen to check it out.
Absolutely. But you know what's nice is like I said, it's tough for me to watch you guys do what you do and not get the opportunity to get the interview questions or to get a moment to kind of celebrate what is rightfully a great moment in your career. And you know, it's important that I think that we make those things, because I'll tell you this much: I wouldn't have known you were opening a school at all. I would have read about it in 2.5 months and been like, oh, cool. Did he skateboard himself to death? Because he shouldn't be.
That's yeah. I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad I was able to find the time. It's a two-way street. It's not just you guys. It's us too. Sometimes as competitors, we kind of complain and say, oh, it should be like this, it should be like that, and it's like, it's not going to be that way if you don't help make it that way, right? So I'm glad that we got this to work out.
Absolutely, dude. Can we take care of any sponsors before we get you on out of here?
Yeah, so I just want to give a quick shout out to some of my sponsors, BHCS and Jiu-Jitsu Online. Maybe you guys can check out Jiu-Jitsu Online and search for my name there. I just dropped a new DVD, X-Guard and Beyond. I use a lot of the techniques that I show on that DVD at ADCC trials, and I might make a little highlight or whatever of the ADCC trials and post up a video on that to kind of link to that DVD. But I hope you guys can check that out. Any other sponsors? MG in Action for sure, and then also one of my trainers, Lahoud Movement. So yeah, thank you.
That's good stuff. And again, I want to make sure that people know that you have an instructional called X-Guard and Beyond.
Yep.
Which what's the Beyond? Like, I know that I have to pay to find out, but like, dog, I get to X-Guard and like, there's not much beyond. It's usually just a sweep for me, you know? Just a nice tease would be good.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that you'll find out with this DVD is there's a lot of counters to counters. So, a lot of people come to me, particularly like for private lessons and stuff like that. And they're like, John, this guy stepping out of my X guard or smash bashing through my single leg X guard. How do I deal with that? And so I have some answers there that work for me, and have worked well in competition on that. So, that's definitely one of the parts of DVD that I'm most excited about. For sure, the sweeps and the submissions and other things like that are still in there though. So it's really a full course. So I hope you guys check it out. 2
responses to that. The first being good, because those were my questions. I'm going to be like, hey, off air, I was going to ask both of those questions because mofos just be backstepping, and I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, man.
But that sounds, it's a problem. But that sounds like a good way to remedy it. So I'm very excited to see what that instructional looks like. And 2, I mean, just the use of the word and beyond, it's a little Buzz Lightyear. So
yeah, Buzz Lightyear, yeah.
Okay, because I don't know if you saw the new Toy Story that was released today. They released a second trailer, a preview for it. And they had Key and Peele. And Key and Peele basically were doing a bit together, and they're making fun of Infinity and Beyond. And here come Woody and Buzz as they walk out, and they're like, hey, do the real line. And they're mocking the line, and he just goes, to Infinity and Beyond. And they just go, you idiot. There's no such thing as beyond infinity.
That's actually true. That's pretty funny.
And so they're like, you must not know science. So for a split second, I was just like, oh man, you need to get in on this. This is what's trending right now. The kids, they love the infinity and beyond. So that was my marketer starting to profess really quickly and being like, oh, is that advertising copy? We'll get on this real quick, Satava. Like that. Anyway, my man, I thank you again for making time for this. It's so much fun to get to know you. And like I said, you're representing all of America, so all of us are going to be very excited to see you do your thing. I should be there live, in effect, myself, covering it. And if I'm not, I'm probably going to jump the gate and find a way to interview you guys somehow, even if it means I'm pulling you outside the nice pyramid and being like, hey, kids, here's the real scoop. But anyway,
Cool.
you guys, again, big congratulations over for East Coast Trials winner. Look for Peak JJ. That's Peak Jiu-Jitsu, but Peak JJ for it's coming out to the hometown of our good friend Jonathan Satava. And when you guys have questions about X-Guard and beyond, you want to get his instructional so that way you, like myself, can work your way through many of the problems that we have whenever idiots try to backstep and pressure past my knee. I'm looking at you, Casey. I'm going to have a recommended problem-solving instructional now to come back after you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, our thanks to Jonathan Satava.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, Hop.